but very different, I mean, than Guillermo. Guillermo is way more oriented into a fantasy, or, well, sometimes it's what they call metaphysical horror, you know. I'm oriented into something that, the horror that is more grounded. I mean, my aspiration is one day, yes, to do a horror film. But the ones, and I enjoy seeing many kinds of horror films, fantasy ones less so, unless it's Guillermo. And, but I love Rosemary's Baby, The Tenant, you know, it's the Polanski stuff I love. I love some of the Babadook.
Ah, yeah, like from Australia.
They're so grounded in a reality, you know. So in a reality and in character. So I love those. So I have loved, as an spectator, I have a wider taste. But something I feel that I could do, it needs to be something more grounded, I guess.
Can't wait to watch another movie made by you.
I would love to do one. I've been flirting, I've been trying to write something like that, and somehow doesn't fully works.
We are waiting for that. So let's talk about Children of Men. It's true that you start thinking about it when you were stuck in Toronto because of the 9/11.
That is exactly true. I was Y Tu Mamá También presented at Venice and then Toronto. And then September 11 happened while we were, the day that they were going to show Y Tu Mamá También, the same day. And I found myself stranded there with Diego and Gael. At least that was a relief, the actors of Y Tu Mamá También. But it was a very, I'm sure that most of you remember that time. It was very unsettling. It was a time in which we all immediately felt that so much was going to change, and unfortunately changed for the worse. You know, and but I was very intrigued about it, and I tried to immediately try to understand what was going to be the tendencies, and the tendencies were not very flattering. The tendencies were already predicting so many things, and it was very obvious. Someone they told me that yes, now it's become relevant because the world that is now, and I said no, it was relevant before as well. And I'm not talking about the film, I'm talking about the things. It's just that we were in our bubble of complacency and wealth. You know, it was still the moment in which there was a sense of wealth and capitalistic optimism and neoliberalist optimism, but it was there. And I said, maybe not in the green zones, maybe not in Europe and the US, but all of those images that you see in Children of Men, those are not science fiction. They were taken from the near present, from the Balkans, from the north of Sri Lanka, from Iraq, you know, and together with the attitudes of populism and media manipulation that it was already, well, in Mexico I lived with that, so it was not so difficult to transport.
The problem is that have become more global and global nowadays. We are talking about immigration, of course, fertility, terrorism, all these kind of things are all now around us more and more.
But it was before. It was that we were kind of very... The example I gave is that in Y Tu Mamá También is a reality going on. Well, there's a bubble, the car is a bubble, in which these two characters are in their own bubble. You know, completely sheltered from that reality. And then inside they have their own bubbles in which they create their mask and their, you know, in which they cope with their own reality inside the car. And I said, no, it's at that period we were just driving a car in a bubble while all of this was happening around. You know, and it has happened always in one shape or another. So yeah, it's and the making of that film, look, is we decided to take the same approach of foreground background. You know, the background needed to be as important as the foreground, and not to do exposition and do exposition, trusting that audiences could make their own conclusions and also take the conclusions out of just visual elements that were, you know, like that they were presented.
And the size that he used, that he changed again, was so amazing. I remember the sequences of the burning car, the long take with the motorbike chase. Did you use this long take in the movie moment because you wanted your movies sometimes are more similar to documentary, but more realistic if you're shooting like that?
It's, you know, it's two things. I mean, yeah, there was a certain reference, if you might, to Battle of Algiers. But Battle of Algiers has a lot of cuts. The whole thing of the one shot, I have to say, I've always been since those days when I was a kid and watching films that I didn't understand, I recognized immediately that there was something of a language between the cuts and the takes and everything. Later on I understood that has to do with time. You know, and since film school, I started doing both. You know, because and it's not that one language versus the other. You know, cutting versus one-shot deals, because, you know, you can see Touch of Evil and opens with the most incredible one-shot deal in cinema, one of the most incredibles. And then you see in the same film the murder in the motel room, and it's like, I don't know how many cuts every second. It's just so weird, it's so great. I've always been fascinated by that, but since the Hollywood part kind of repressed that in me, you know, doing a little bit here and a little bit there, but nothing, you know, like I tried, like Great Expectations had a long take and stuff, but it was more like what I call the look mama, no hands. You know, that's the problem I find with those shots sometimes, is they look mama, no hands. And in Itu Mama también, it was that you were going to keep the shot until the last consequence. And we start shooting everything just in one shot deal, and then she will say, you know what, I think it's great, I love it, you know. And in Itu Mama también has very long shots, it's just that the camera doesn't move. And she will say, but you know what, I think that just to make the point, why don't we cut once in a while? Just so it doesn't look that it's just the gimmick for the books. It's okay, let's do it. But always respecting the sense of time in each shot. You know, they're not fast cuts, but, you know,